Hi, welcome to 2020 Tasty Treats. We've got 20 different things going on through the website GourmetQuilter.com for this year of 2020 with all sorts of activities happening. This time we're making 20 foundation piece blocks. So there is a picture on the website. These are the blocks that we're making. We've already made several of them. We've already made 15 blocks in fact. So there's 15 blocks already there. So we're now up to block 16, which is going to be this bee, which when he's got his wings all together, he looks like that. And so it's going to be kind of a lot of fun. So we're doing one block a day with a video each day, a pattern each day. So if you've registered with GourmetQuilter, you'll have the pattern to print so that you've got all your segments. So the bee is made in 4 different segments. So we make the separate segments, then we join the segments together to make the block. So we're stitching onto the paper foundation. So when you cut your segments out, they need to have a slight margin around them, not necessarily a lot, but so that we can trim them back onto the dotted line around the edge, because that would then give us a seam allowance as well. So I have already started on the bee. I've already made section A, which is the head, which is just a small piece of the black with tiny little corners off it, just to sort of round it a little bit, and then some more background. I've made one of the wings, so I'm just going to finish off the second wing to show you how to pop that piece of background on that funny angle in. And then we've got the body. I've started the body, but we'll get to that in a minute. So with the wing, so on the segment every piece is numbered, and we start with number 1 and then we put on number 2. So I've actually already done pieces 1 and 2. So we need to put this piece 3 on, which is a long wedge of the background fabric. So I'd suggest that you fold along the line, the solid line is a stitching line, that you fold your pattern, and you can bring the fabric over as well along that line, and it's that folded over bit that we're trying to cover. So that's the bit that you have to have the fabric behind. So you want your fabric right side up, and so you want to lay that down so that this piece here that's flipped over is well and truly covered by the fabric. Now it's quite a long stitching line, so it's coming right through here, right up to the end here. So you've got to make sure that you've got fabric behind the whole of the stitching line there, and it's looking pretty good. And when that flips over around the other way, you'll have enough fabric there. So I'll go ahead and I'll stitch on this line right out to the seam allowance at both ends, and then we can have a look at how that's come up. So that's done. So when this piece here is going to flip back along that line, you can see that that's well and truly covering our piece of pattern that we're after. So what I'm going to do now is just fold the paper over on the stitching line, and if we've already stitched into that little area, just pull that away from the paper, and then we can trim that seam that we've just stitched along there. About 1/4 inch or ever so slightly under is a good amount to trim. And then we can fold the paper back and the fabric back, and we can press that. And so now we've got that, but we just need to trim it up along the dotted line of the pattern piece so that we can have it the right size when we join those segments together. So I'll quickly trim that, and then we can go ahead and start on working on the body. The body is kind of a little bit more colourful and fairly straightforward. It's just going to be done in strips. So here's my second wing. So I now have 2 wings in opposite directions, one out each side of the bee. And the body. So I've already started putting the body strips on here. So a bee is kind of stripy, and I've gone for some stronger colours on this one. So all we're doing, we started at piece 1, and I just popped a little bit of glue behind to hold that in place to get started, and then we're just putting a strip on and flipping it down. The one thing to make sure you keep an eye on here is that it's getting wider as we go down, so your strips will need to be just a little bit longer each time to allow for that. So we'll just continue on doing that. I've done a piece, I've already put piece 4 on, so I need to put piece 5 on now. So I'm just placing my strips right sides together behind there. Make sure that there's enough fabric behind where you're going to stitch, so if you're not sure you can fold it along that line. Bring the fabric that you've got there already so that you can see that there's going to be enough to sew a seam against there, and we'll go and sew the seam. So it was more that you just need to make sure that they're long enough as the pieces get wider each time. Fold that back and trim and press. I like to press every time because it all just sits so much better. And now there's another piece 6, which is this nice dark colour here, and then we need to round off the lower edge with some little corners, and there's not a huge amount. This bee is kind of fun. I quite like this bee. Again, fold back the paper where we've just sewn, trim the seam, and press that down. And then now we need to put on our pieces. So that was piece 6 that we've got sitting there, the dark piece. We need 7 and 8. They're just little tiny corners just to round, or apparently round off the edges down the lower end of the bee there. So I'm just going to put those behind so you can bring that forward so that you can see it sitting in the right place along the stitching line, and stitch that. These are just tiny pieces, although you need a little bit to allow a little bit extra to get enough fabric to go out to the seam allowance each time. Same thing, bring that paper forward along the line we've stitched, trim off that small amount and press it. And the same thing, I've already got my bits of fabric ready here. Same thing for this other little corner down here. Place that behind. Let's check that everything's looking okay. Could be just a touch further out. Looking pretty good. Stitching from the seam allowance edge just into that next little section. Fold the paper back, trim the seam, and press the seam. There's one more piece to put on across the lower edge, which is just another strip across again, but with the background fabric. So we just want to make sure that our piece is long enough to cover that, because it's got wider again. And it's sitting there. We can double check that by folding on that stitching line. That's all looking pretty good. Stitch along there, and then we can trim that piece up, and then we can join our bee up. So I'm just going to flip that back now. Because we've got these little bits stitched into that area, I'll just pull those away from the paper so I can fold it along the stitched line. Trim that seam, press that seam, and now we can go ahead and trim our bee body piece. So we just got to trim along these dotted lines everywhere here. And along the lower edge, and then there's just a couple of little extra corner trims here. That dotted line just comes in a little bit. And there we have our bee body section. So stitched in with his wings, he's going to look kind of fun. So he's fairly straightforward to put together. We put the wings on either side of the body, and then we put the head right across last. So I think I'll go ahead and stitch together my body piece and put the head on and show you the block when it's all finished. So I've gone ahead and stitched all my pieces together, and I'm just pressing this seam where the head goes on open, but I've pressed these two to one side, out to the wings each side from the body, because there's so many seams there, I wanted to push it that way. So we've gone ahead and we've got our bee block. We're looking pretty smart as a bee. If you wanted to add some little feelers or legs or things, that will be up to you. You could use embroidery, you could machine stitch them, you could use a marking pen. I quite like my bee pretty much just like it is, so I'm very happy with that. And so that's block 16 done. Oh, we have only got 4 more to go. So we'll just pop it up here with all these other blocks. They're looking pretty good in there. So thank you for watching. That was block 16, and please have a look on GourmetQuilter.com for some more information. Otherwise we'll see you back here again for block foundation piece block number 17.